In the beginning, God created the world. With his great hands, he shaped life from the soil. This is where Adam and Lilith, the first humans, were born. The Garden of Eden, created by God, was a truly beautiful place. The flowers, trees, and animals all lived in harmony, like a dream. But you see, there was one fruit in Eden that must never be eaten. That was the forbidden fruit. Just the sight of it makes your heart race.
Why can't we eat that fruit? Aren't we supposed to be beings of freedom?
Lilith. Lilith met Samael, a fallen angel. He stirred the rebellious spirit within her.
With you, I can defy God.
We have freedom. We don't need to obey God.
Lilith began to oppose Adam. She hated being dominated by him and demanded equality.
We were both created from the same soil. Why should I have to obey you?
Because it's God's will, order must be maintained.
And so, Lilith left Eden. She defied God and chose her own path. It took great courage, but it was also a little sad.
I will walk my own path. I seek a freedom that no one can control.
With Lilith gone, Adam was left all alone. The garden was vast, but he felt lonely.
Lilith, how did it come to this?
Seeing Adam's loneliness, God created a new companion for him. This was Eve.
Adam, this is your new companion. Live with her in the garden.
Eve was a pure and gentle woman. Her presence made Eden peaceful and happy once again.
This garden is so beautiful. We can live here happily forever.
But a wicked snake appeared and tempted Eve. It told her to eat the forbidden fruit. Scary, isn't it?
Don't be afraid. If you eat the fruit, you will know everything.
Eve gave in to temptation and took the forbidden fruit. Though she hesitated to eat it, her curiosity got the better of her. Adam also followed Eve's words and ate the fruit. That was the moment the rule of the garden was broken. God was very angry. Adam and Eve were banished from the garden. They had once been so happy.
You have broken my command. You can never return to Eden.
The gates of Eden closed, and they could never return. A harsh reality awaited them.
Why? We just wanted to know more.
The outside world was nothing like Eden. It was harsh and cruel. Adam and Eve had to work hard to survive. They bore the heavy burden of their sin. The memories of their happy days in Eden became more distant. Eve gave birth to their first son, Cain. When he was born, they found new hope. And then Abel was born. Cain and Abel were two very close brothers.
Cain and Abel, perhaps our family can be happy again.
However, Lilith returned. She and Samael plotted to rebel against Adam, Eve, and even God.
I've come back. This time, I will change everything.
Lilith began to influence Cain, pulling his heart into darkness. Her words were powerful.
You are special, Cain. You have a destiny greater than anyone else.
Cain began to grow jealous of his brother Abel. Abel was blessed by God, and Cain felt conflicted. Lilith and Samael whispered to Cain, "Believe in your own power." Though it was frightening, Cain listened to them.
You have great power within you. Use it.
Don't be afraid, Cain. Unleash your power.
Cain could no longer hold back his anger, and he lashed out at Abel. Oh, he couldn't stop himself. And so Cain buried Abel. The moment he lost his brother, his heart was consumed by darkness. God did not overlook Cain's sin. As punishment, Cain was banished to a land far from Eden. God's eyes looked so sad. Meanwhile, Lilith's power continued to grow. She and Samael began gathering dark forces.
The time has come to challenge God.
Adam and Eve were deeply hurt by Cain's sin. Losing their beloved son made them feel even more alone. But hope wasn't lost. Eve gave birth to a new son, Seth. This brought a little healing to their wounded hearts. Lilith had raised an army from the depths of the underworld. Under her command, dark soldiers prepared to strike at God's kingdom. Eve continued to pray to God, asking for no more sorrow to come. But Lilith's power was growing stronger, and it was uncertain if Eve's prayers would reach. God warned the angels, "Lilith is gathering her strength once more. We must be vigilant." Heaven began preparing for the coming battle. But Samael wasn't just an ally. He was using Lilith to fulfill his own ambitions. He had always been a traitor. Storms gathered in both heaven and earth. The final battle between God and Lilith was drawing near. Eve made one last prayer to God. She wished for peace to return after the battle, praying with tears in her heart. At last, the battle between heaven and earth began. The angels clashed with Lilith's forces, and the sky was filled with storms. Lilith unleashed a power unlike anything seen before. Her anger and hatred shook the very air. Her defiance against God was terrifying. But God did not remain silent. His power descended from the heavens, illuminating the battlefield. The angels stood strong against the darkness. God's army clashed head-on with Lilith's dark forces. Light and darkness collided, shaking the world. Eve watched the battle and continued to pray. Her heart was torn between fear and hope. Would her prayers be answered? During the battle, something began to change. Lilith's power started to weaken, and God's light began to break through the darkness. Lilith was cornered. God's light surrounded her, and her strength waned, but she refused to give up.
I won't surrender. I'll fight until the very end.
Finally, Samael betrayed Lilith. He abandoned her, pursuing his own goals. It was cruel.
Your role is over, Lilith. I'm moving on to the next battle.
Lilith, betrayed by Samael, felt her heart break. Her expression was filled with anger and sorrow, but she still chose to fight on. From afar, Adam prayed quietly. He wished for everything to end in peace, though there was nothing he could do.
Please, God, bring peace to this world again.
The battle on the field intensified as light and darkness clashed fiercely. The angels and Lilith's forces fought with growing intensity. Summoning her last bit of strength, Lilith advanced toward God. Her face was resolute, though her power was at its limit.
I won't give up, not until the very last moment.
Even then, Eve hadn't lost hope. She prayed in her heart to God, believing that peace would come after everything was over. God's army continued to grow stronger. Lilith's forces began to fall one after another, and light started to envelop the world. Samael had overestimated his own power. Though he betrayed Lilith, he too was eventually defeated by God's might.
Samael, your ambitions end here.
At last, Lilith fell. Her power faded, and her body disappeared into the light. It was the moment everything came to an end. When the battle ended, the world grew quiet. The angels had won, but the battlefield was scarred deeply. Adam and Eve looked upon the battle and reflected deeply. They repented for the sins they had committed and the chain of events it had triggered. Eve gave thanks to God. Once again, she prayed, believing that peace would return to the world.
Thank you, God. Please let your light fill this world.
Though Lilith was defeated, her influence still lingered. Her shadow remained on Earth, and it hadn't fully disappeared. Slowly, the world began to heal. Trees grew once again, and animals returned. Light covered everything once more. Adam reflected on his mistakes and sought forgiveness from God. He vowed never to repeat his errors again.
I won't repeat my mistakes. I'll build a new future.
Eve dreamed of a peaceful world once more. In her dream, a beautiful place like Eden spread out, and all was calm. Before disappearing, Lilith spoke her final words. Her words remained deeply in the hearts of everyone.
All I ever sought was freedom, but was that truly a sin?
The battle ended, and the sky slowly cleared. The dark clouds disappeared, and the sun emerged. It was as if a new beginning was being announced. The world embraced a new beginning. Adam and Eve once again held hands and looked toward a hopeful future. It felt as though everything could be restarted. After the battle, Lilith hid herself in the wilderness. She had lost her power and now sought to regain it in quiet solitude. Gradually, Lilith began to recover her strength. She rose once again, searching for a new path to challenge God. Those who noticed Lilith's presence started gathering around her. They believed in her and were determined to follow her. Lilith devised a new plan, using her worshippers to once again change the world. This time, she aimed to control it from the shadows. Lilith began her revenge by creeping into the dreams of humans. Little by little, she spread fear throughout the world. Eve sensed Lilith's return and knew that the time to confront her again was approaching. She began to think of how to stop her.
Lilith, you returned once more.
Lilith began assembling a new army. Those who followed her gained dark powers and started spreading terror across the world. Eve warned Adam of Lilith's return, and together they decided to face her. Eve knew they could no longer leave Lilith unchecked.
Adam, the time has come for us to stop her.
Adam hesitated to confront Lilith again. His past with her weighed on his mind, and he was tormented by it.
Do we really have to defeat her again? Is that truly the right thing to do?
Lilith had deceived the eyes of God and the angels, quietly expanding her influence in the shadows. She was ready to show her power to the world again. Lilith's forces began to spread chaos across the world. Her influence grew steadily, and strange phenomena started occurring everywhere. Eve prayed to God once again, asking for strength. She understood that she was the last hope to stop Lilith.
God, please grant me the strength to save Lilith.
At last, Eve and Lilith stood face to face again. Eve wanted to save Lilith, but Lilith rejected her offer. Lilith was determined to follow the path she had chosen. She believed that no one could control her anymore.
I chose freedom. That will never change.
Tearfully, Eve begged Lilith to reconsider. She believed that together, they could build a peaceful world.
Lilith, please, it's not too late. We can start over together.
Lilith felt a conflict in her heart. For a moment, she listened to Eve's words, but she knew she couldn't turn back from the path she had chosen. Their battle wasn't just one of physical strength, but of hearts and wills. Eve sought peace, while Lilith fought for freedom. In the end, Lilith chose her destiny. She resolved to walk her path of freedom, refusing to submit to God's power.
I will walk my own path. No one can change that.
Eve wept as Lilith once again distanced herself. She was heartbroken that she couldn't save her. Lilith disappeared into the shadows once more. She still possessed power, but for now, she quietly retreated to gather her strength. Eve continued to pray for Lilith's salvation. She never gave up hope for her.
This garden is so beautiful. We can live here happily forever.
Adam reflected on his past with Lilith and regretted that she couldn't have chosen a different path. After Lilith's departure, the world began to heal once more. People continued to work toward a new peace. Eve's kindness and strength were passed down to future generations. Her prayers became a symbol of peace. But Lilith's shadow never completely disappeared. There may come a day when she returns once more. Eve, until the very end, hoped that Lilith would one day walk the path of light. Perhaps, someday, that hope would be fulfilled. The angels continued to watch over the earth to ensure that Lilith would not return. They remained ever vigilant. An ancient prophecy foretold that Lilith might one day rise again and challenge God once more. No one knew when, but the possibility lingered. Lilith's shadow still lingered somewhere, hidden. Her power had not completely vanished, and she could reappear at any time. Adam, while remembering Lilith, found peace in the present. He lived with gratitude for the peace they had now and believed in the future. The world continued to heal, and the scars left by Lilith slowly began to fade. People reclaimed their peace. Eve's teachings and her kindness lived on in the hearts of many. She became a symbol of peace. Lilith's story came to an end, but her influence never fully disappeared. Perhaps, one day, a new story will begin again.